ahead and get folks checked in. See that we have Craig Abercrombie. Mr. Abercrombie, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Mr. Starkey? It's been a while.
Not bad. Yeah, it has. Remind me, are you with PCA or is it separate engineering?
I'm a sub consultant, so we're the civil engineer. So I work through PCA, and then PCA works for Boys and Girls Club.
All right, great. Welcome. Let's see. We have Mike Bankert. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
PCA has since changed its name to Emboss, so it's PCA is what's on our documents, but if you hear Emboss as well, it's one and the same.
Okay, cool. I will probably, just for documentation purposes, keep it as PCA just to have some consistency across our application documents, but it won't be an issue with permitting or anything like that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, welcome. And I see we also have Wes from the zoning department. Welcome, Wes.
Good afternoon.
And finally, someone under Nicholas Keys. Are you with us?
Yeah, Nick Keys. I'm with JS Held. I'm an owner's rep on the design and construction side for Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. Nick, were you going to offer any testimony here today at all?
I was not. I'm planning on backing up Mike and Craig if they need anything from the Boys and Girls side. But outside of that, they're the geniuses.
Sure. No problem. I was just going to say, if at any point you do want to provide testimony, I'll ask you to turn your camera on. Just like to give people a heads up. You don't need to if you're not going to provide anything, or if you're just observing. Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. All right. Are we expecting anyone else to join us here on the applicant owner side?
No, Bill Bresser with Boys and Girls Club is unable to attend.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. I need to read through our hearing script. This will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll jump into it. So this is the September 27th, 2023 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. The case before today is case number ZH20230139. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there were anyone here from the public, they would have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. I'll hear from Wes Menzel from the zoning department. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to that testimony and or opposition that was offered. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So really, for our purposes here today, guys, I'll let Craig and Mike tell me about the project. Any background they think is important for me to know, what exactly the plan is here, and why they think I should grant the relief, why the relief is appropriate. You two can orient that discussion however you would like. Mr. Keys, of course, you can get involved as well. One of you can speak, both of you can speak. It's really up to you. I'll then hear from Wes. I'll have some questions along the way, and I'll let you guys respond to anything Wes said if you would like, and then make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from me fully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing to do is just swear in our witnesses. So if you intend on providing testimony here today, the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you could raise your right hand, I need you to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. All right. Let's see, who's going to be taking the lead here on the presentation?
I can take the lead on it. I have both the application that we submitted as well as the staff report that Wes generated up on my screen. I think it's helpful if it's okay for me to share to give you some context for your project.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Okay, can you guys see?
We can. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so a little bit of background on the project. It is a new 2-story Boys and Girls Club community center in the Roll Hill neighborhood that will be serving the surrounding Roll Hill community. It is currently a vacant site with the exception of a couple of basketball courts, which are these gray boxes on the plan right there. I do have some overall images of the site as well in 3D that you can see. This dashed yellow box is the extent of the site. And then what we are proposing is within the same dashed yellow box in these images right here. In order to make this project work for the client and the community, we are requesting a few variances, which I will go over. One of the things I can show you just to give you an idea of the type of spaces that are in this building is this is going to be for both kids and teens. They have a series of program rooms on the lower and upper floors, as well as a gymnasium that will be used by the kids that are using the center. So this is the first floor. We have a couple of different entries for kids, and their activities will primarily be on the lower level. And then for the teens, they have their separate entrance that goes upstairs, and they have a few additional program rooms up here that are open and can be used for various activities. There's also a couple of offices on both floors for use by the Boys and Girls Club staff. So that's an overview of the project. We're also proposing a parking lot on the site as well, and getting into the variances that we are requesting. I'll go to the staff report. The first is a conditional use for the community center. The RM 2.0 district requires conditional use approval. So that is something that we have to request. It's similar to a school in that it benefits the community. It's going to be used by the community and is a complementary use on the site, but we do need to get a conditional use approval for that variance. The second variance that's being requested is parking lot variance based on the zoning code and the use that requires 100 one parking space for 100 square foot of community service use. With the square footage of this project, it will require 244 parking spaces. And as you can see on this is the site plan for the project with 28. With the way the size of the site, that's just something to make this project work. We cannot fit that many spaces on site, nor would that necessarily be appropriate.
Yeah, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong here. The villages here are all sort of self-contained, right? One way in, one way out, mostly here. And so I don't know. I've spent a lot of time in this community actually, and it just doesn't seem to me like to have that many parking spaces would be necessary, because a lot of these kids are going to be just walking from the neighborhood, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you look around the site, it's surrounded by the community neighborhood buildings on all edges of the site. So, expanding the site and taking out residences to just make parking, that's never going to be used, I don't think really made sense for anyone. This is a similar size to the parking lots actually has more spaces than similar size Boys and Girls Clubs within the city of Cincinnati. So it's not something that's unusual, and it's something that they're used to from an operational standpoint of having a parking space, parking lot that's this size.
Yeah, that makes sense. It doesn't even look like the school over there has that many parking spaces. Good
Yeah,
point.
I would have to zoom out. We don't have the school, but that could well be the case. And then, so those are the first couple of variances. The third one is a rear setback variance to allow for a 27-foot rear setback instead of the 35-foot rear setback, minimum setback that's required. Where that is really what's causing that is the way the property lines are not orthogonal, it's skewed. We have the building oriented parallel to the street. And typically with most rectilinear lots, you would have the rear setback similarly be in that same orientation. But due to the skewed nature of the building relative to the rear property line, you can see a small corner of the building infringes on that 35-foot setback. So we're requesting that we get relief to allow for it to be this 27-foot setback right here.
Okay. See that.
Okay, so that's the first three. The fourth one, make sure there was none on this other page. The rest of them have to deal with just signage that we're proposing for the building. The square footage amount for building signage over the entries and for the building itself is very restricted, and the zoning district that we're in. So we're requesting a variance really to just get signage that's similar in nature to, for the size, what is on other Boys and Girls Club, and that we feel is appropriate for the scale of the building to direct the public how to use the facility. I'm going to show you both on elevation and then in these renderings where we're showing the signage. So the first is along the President Drive, the main street, for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Cincinnati logo. You can see the dimensions for that here, 3 foot by 25 foot. And then over the teen center and youth center, I mentioned they have separate entries for kids and for teens. And that's what these are trying to show for visitors of the building, looking at what that looks like from a perspective standpoint from the street. You can see the scale of it. This is exactly the same as what we showed for the dimensions on those elevations.
So the square footage is for is it just for the one sign on the President Street facade, or is that square footage for?
We have variances for both, for all these signage. So in terms of the one that is number 4 on here, these are for
that's for the President Street sign, and the other 2 are for the teen and youth center signage.
Correct. So number 5 is for the 2 doors in the south facade.
Okay. And then all of those are going to be internally illuminated?
That is what we are requesting for this variance. Whether it ends up being that way, I'm not sure, but we do at this point plan for it to be that. So we wanted to request that. We would, the hours, I did share with, and I think it's shown on the staff report, I shared with Wes what the operating hours of the club are going to be. The internal illumination would not be something that would necessarily need to be on like, throughout the night or anything. But that's what
Gotcha.
the last variance is for, is to allow illumination, internal illumination. There are going to be some times when it's darker in the morning or evening when it's the winter time. So for wayfinding purposes, having illuminated is preferable for the club.
Okay.
I believe so that covers the variances that we were requesting, and I'm happy to speak to any questions and can bring in Craig or Nick if I need any follow-up.
Sure. Let me just start with some questions. I think, the the signs here are the only place where I just have just, I don't even know if I want to say hesitation, but just a couple questions. So, this is going to be directly across from one of these long multi-family developments here, right? These longer
Correct.
buildings. And so
Correct.
do
Well,
you think we're going to be dealing with
this,
some adverse impacts there with the illumination of the sign going into these folks, in front of these folks' homes and bedrooms?
I think the sales office is in one or two of those units, if I recall, right, Mike? Or the rental office?
Yeah, this is Nick. The sales office is 3710 through
Nick,
3714.
Nick, can you turn your camera on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It might be a little bit skewed. I'm off site right now, so hopefully you can see me.
Sure. Nick, could you raise your right hand?
Yeah, I did.
And
I
do
can-
you solemnly
yeah.
swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I just want to get that
Yeah, no, appreciate that.
with the camera. Yeah, no problem. What did you want to add?
So the buildings across the street, I think it's 3710 through 3714 is the management office. So that is those, I guess, like 2 or 3 units there all combined. That's where the conference rooms are and everything for the whole village. So I don't think it would be as big of a deal for them, but we don't really need a ton of internal illumination. I think the one thing that Mike had stated is the hours of operation. Right now, I think they end at 8 o'clock, but the city has asked us to stay open later, and we're working to try to figure out how, the staffing and everything that's required for that as late as 10. So we were really hoping to have some illumination on those signs.
Gotcha. And the rationale for the additional size of the one that's on President that's going to be illuminated, is there, and I don't know if maybe Craig could speak to this, but is there some sort of like line of sight or distance that you guys are trying to hit in order to assist with wayfinding? I'm not sure how that
That'd be
I'm
good.
looking for
Mike
some
just-
sort of explanation of how that
Yeah,
helps.
I'd say,
with
Mike, if you could
wayfinding
pull that
for a smaller
elevation
one.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are the 3D views that are presented are from the street level. It's very similar to, there is a decent amount of setback from where the road is versus where the building is. And this is the same size of what is typically on their clubs. And from a visibility standpoint, to to be visible. It's understood that, that the users of this will know where the Boys and Girls Club is, but to be consistent with other clubs and to make it so that it is visible from the street, that's why we're requesting a sign the size that it is.
Okay.
We are further back off the street, like Glenway and Gilsey, which we worked on with PCA probably 10 or 15 years ago. That's at a 0 setback maximum zoning. So that's right on the sidewalk. And we're about 28, actually probably more than a little over 40 feet from the curb line to the building on this. So it is set back farther than your usual urban type of setting.
Did you say 40 feet between the roadway and signage?
Correct. 40, even possibly a little more. That's the curb. That's the building.
Got it.
Yeah, so you can see from
That's
here to
a-
here is 20 feet.
That's
it's
20,
another
so
20 feet to there.
yeah, it's a wider right of way than usual too that we usually see. So you've got a larger distance from curb to the right of way, and then we're, like Mike said, we're 20 foot minimum off the right of way. So we're probably 41, 42 feet right there.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have right now. Let me give Wes an opportunity to weigh in here if he would like. Wes?
Good afternoon. I don't really have any additional comments relative to the staff report other than just highlighting the illumination element. Even though that maybe directly across the street from the front of the new building is an office, but the light, emanates upward and outward, and it's not just something that impacts the people right across the street. So I would just urge, consideration of that, and the hours again, the light, when the building is closed, there's no one going to be going there. So maybe considering, a lit on the hours, matching up with the operating hours that I think was mentioned that they want to extend them till 10 p.m. But that's kind of what mainly the main thing I wanted to say beyond the staff report. So thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Wes. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think my biggest concern here is just the internal illumination. So would that be something, and maybe that is probably best for Mr. Keys. Would that be something where a restriction would, if I put a restriction on that it can't be on after 10 o'clock, is that something that you all can live with?
I think so. Yeah. The only other option we could do is maybe look at like a gooseneck light that lights from below that faces towards the building. I don't know if that would be better or worse. I think both options are on the table, but we could also look at restricting the hours of the signage and just do a time clock.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let me say this. I am going to approve. I've had a chance to review all the application materials. Like I said, I'm familiar with this neighborhood and this community. Based on that and based on the testimony that I've heard here today, I'm going to approve all of the requested relief. Although I think I will put a restriction on the internal illumination of the signs after a certain time frame. I don't think that necessarily has to line up with your operational hours. So if you wanted to stay open past 10 o'clock, that's fine, but would ask for the sign to come off at 10 o'clock. That's probably what I'll do is 10 o'clock. I think that sounds reasonable. And it's mainly just to try to avoid any potential adverse effects of the light pollution on bedrooms across the street. If you want to do an external illumination, Wes, I think that's permitted by right, isn't it? So that's
Yes.
something you could do, and then that restriction on the lighting would not apply at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. But if you want to do a clock that shuts it off at 10, that works too. But I just want to add in a little protection for those folks to avoid any, trouble down the road.
So just real quick clarification on that. If we were to, let's say the restrictions at 10 o'clock and for some reason that they're still, folks are still picking their kids up or there's people coming and going after 10 and the lights are kind of on a time clock, because that's probably how we would do it. Would it be possible to not have the restriction on the face of the plan south or the entryways where it says teen and youth? So we could still have those on where those are facing a parking lot and a grassy area with woods on the other side. I don't know, Mike, if you could show the parking lot elevation, that might help.
Yeah, I'm looking at the street view. So where will the south facing facade, those lights, where will they be in comparison, if you know, to the existing basketball court? The existing like northernmost basketball court there? Because as I look at Google Maps, I can see the basketball court. I can kind of tell from your earlier picture that you showed, Mike, where the center is going to go. Yeah, so do you know what I'm asking? Where the south facade will be in relation to that top court?
I think that's probably about where they'd be. Right, where the signs would be about at the
They're
bottom of
pretty
the top court.
much in line with where this.
What their radius is.
Okay. Yeah,
Well,
that's
where
actually
that,
helpful. I
it's
can
pretty
see
much, it's a little bit past, it's where the radius is right here. So it would be about
that. Oh yeah.
right here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable, Mr. Keys.
And that building to the south, Mr. Sturkey, that's a community. It's not a living space. That's a community. As you know, you've been there. Okay.
Yep.
It's not like there's anyone's bedroom on that side.
Dave,
Sure.
can I jump in for a second? I would just highlight that there are single family houses that just to the west that will be able to see that south facade, especially in the winter. I mean, in the winter when those trees are have no leaves on them. So I don't know. I just try to, really look out for the interests of the light pollution. I mean, I would.
Is there any elevation there?
I think it's pretty flat, but I would just encourage them to do the external illumination where the sign or the light is shining towards their own property, so.
Yeah. Well, so Mr. Keys, I'm close to here. Let me just drive up and take a look at this. In regards to that question about those two south facing signs, and I'll put this all, so what I'll do is I'll put this all into a written decision. That's when I mentioned earlier, it takes about 2 weeks. That's what takes about 2 weeks. Mr. Abercrombie's familiar with the process here. I put into a written decision. I put into a PDF, and then I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So that I'll lay out all the reasoning and the standards that I have to follow with the variance process, but it'll also have a decision with an approval and then conditions of that approval. And I'll spell out in those conditions exactly where I came out with the internal illumination on the signs. And the limitations, exactly what the hours are. By the way, how open or how early do these Boys and Girls Clubs open?
I think they're staffed earlier than 2 o'clock, but typically they're ready to go when the kids are getting off school. And then in the summertime, I think they open at 9 or 10 in the morning.
Okay.
So they're longer days in the summertime, but that's really where the extended hours would be when school isn't in and where the kids they're trying to keep them off the streets and keep them in the building as long as possible.
Yep. Okay. So because it'll be a window that the eternal illumination will be restricted. So it'll probably be something between 10 and 7 or 8 a.m.
Okay.
You don't see an issue with that.
I don't.
I mean, by that time, most of the year it's light out.
Right. I don't see an issue with it at all. I mean, we're it's not retail space at all. So it's a destination and most of the people are walking up anyway. So I don't think it'll be an issue at all.
Okay. All right, great. So looking at that decision for the south facing limitation, if any, and then I'll probably just have that one limitation on the internal for the President Drive street side. And as Wes said, the external illumination is also always an option if you guys want to explore that. I won't put any limitation on there. So Any other questions, guys?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep, absolutely. Mike, thanks for your presentation. Thank you all for your testimony. Good luck with the project. Looks great. Wish you the best. We are